Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. If Carl starts coughing, I've got a minute left to finish my presentation. That's the normal routine, Carl, isn't it? I've got about 15 minutes just to take you through a range of kind of key things, really, that I think are just kind of helpful to inject a little bit of confidence into the economy. So hopefully you can see a screen. I think if we go back to the whole story of, well, what's happened since COVID and what trajectory were we on, what happened and where we are now, the signs are our economy locally is recovering well. And there's a range of kind of things that you can look at that can kind of demonstrate that. I'm one of these geeks, boffins I think was referred to earlier by Andy, who kind of look at these sorts of stats. And when we went into COVID, Shropshire, across what the DWP measured, which is the whole of the Mercia region, we were kind of top or second to top for rate of job loss, rate of growth in universal credit claimants, etc. It really hit us hard and fast. But interestingly, we were also one of the fastest out. And today, if you can kind of see a slide, don't worry too much about the detail, but what you'll see is at the bottom, what I've highlighted in yellow is actually in terms of things like regional unemployment, we're at the bottom. We're doing really well. And you can kind of break that down and you can look at kind of 18 to 24-year-olds right down at the bottom of that table in terms of unemployment. You know, great testament to the kind of work that's going on, I think, also with our skills providers there, providing opportunities for young people. Declare an interest here in terms of the 50-plus claimant count. You know, we're all interested. That's low as well. There's an interesting bit, of course, locally for us about our demographic in that sense. We've got a significant proportion of the workforce over 50, but actually all of the kind of metrics that you look at that the DWP have got, Shropshire is doing well. So well done to you. I think that's important. I don't know how many of you saw this headline that was in the Shropshire Star about last year saw a record level of new business growth, new business registrations at Company House. That's fantastic. You know, the other side of that is there's always, businesses that close and, there's a net kind of gain. Actually, businesses didn't close at a growth rate, so our net gain was quite significant. So a really kind of positive story there about, if you like, the conditions for growth for local business and people having confidence to kind of step into that world. So that's, I think, another reason to be cheerful, Mark 1, for those of you that remember Ian Jury. So in terms of the things, though, that are affecting us going forward, we're still in the early days. I think last weekend was the 100-day anniversary of the new government. We've heard lots of kind of words, but not seen too much yet of any of the detail in relation to what is their programme going to really mean for business. How are they going to kind of pump prime growth? Lots of kind of high-level kind of rhetoric. What does that mean? And I've listed out there some of the things that they'll talk about in terms of their key national mission that they came into the election with. There's then this thing about planning reform. Then the interesting bit there about planning reform is actually in Shropshire, I don't think we have too much of a challenge with planning. I would say that, wouldn't I? But we were top 20 for housing growth nationally for the last 10 years. We've kind of really kind of exceeded our targets. Our base target was just over 1,000 housing units a year. We've just been given a new target of over 2,000 units a year. Our local plan is just about to complete its examination in process stage, and that's got a build rate of about 1,500 a year built into it. So we'll go through at that rate. But we've got growth in that local plan, which is about 6,000 housing units above what Shropshire needs. We really are kind of ambitious for growth across the county as a whole. The infrastructure piece is really interesting, isn't it? We've seen some high-level announcements around some of that carbon reduction stuff, but the green economy is where so much of the activity is at. Well, how is that going to translate into pump priming support on the ground, getting behind businesses, helping people make that adaptation? In terms of the industrial strategy, we're all waiting to see what the Chancellor says, aren't we, 2 weeks tomorrow in relation to the budget. I think more detail on the industrial strategy is going to come out from that, so let's wait and see how much money she's able to put behind business and growth. And then at the bottom there, if you can't see it, there's a bit about how do we access some devolution and growth money to support what you need to create the conditions for growth locally. So there's a little bit here, but this was a metric that appeared in the local government press last week. You'll see that we're in this purple geography there with Powys, Herefordshire and Montgomeryshire, which is the footprint of the Marches Forward Partnership, which we'll be talking about later. Interestingly, on the index of that map, the purple description says complicated. The dark blue are where there are already mayoral combined authorities. The yellow is where there will be more mayoral combined authorities. Green are where there are combined authorities, and the green and yellow stripe around the south coast is they haven't made their mind up yet. But your point is, the devolution map across the UK is growing and growing fast, and you've got to be at that table if you want any of the kind of prizes that will fall out of government support. And it's not just about money, it's also about freedoms and flexibilities and better control of existing mainstream resources. So we've got a finger in that pie, but we're focusing very much on functional geography. We're a huge county, and we're polycentric in the sense of we touch all sorts of places around our borders. We're in conversations with everybody about how we kind of work to support all of our kind of communities. So the interesting bit we'll come back to there, but useful to kind of put that on the table. In terms of the drivers for change, the pandemic was a new paradigm. We did see a shift of people make choices in life that kind of then, work is what you do, it's not a place. In the face of the pandemic, for the first 2 quarters of 2020, Shrewsbury, according to Estates Gazette, saw the biggest increase in commercial lettings interest in the whole of the UK. Who'd have thought? But that just kind of underlined actually Shrewsbury is a destination that people wanted to come to, and Shropshire is a place to kind of live and work, etc. So we're working hard to try and just capitalise that kind of shift that has taken place, whereas people now are settled into more of a hybrid style of working in many ways. And of course, we track, is Seb Slater here? I haven't seen him this morning. And of course, don't we, Seb, we track a lot of retail trends, also with the bid in Osler Street, and fair play to everybody who's in retail in Shropshire and Shrewsbury. You've done tremendously well because we've emerged really positively. And Shrewsbury continues to outperform its partners, Seb, doesn't it? Harrogate and Chester. I'll say that again, it outperforms Chester and Harrogate, doesn't it, Seb? It's fantastic. And what we've seen on our high street, which is this swap from traditional retail, has been replaced by food and beverage. Our town centres are about experience. They're about the quality of experience. They're not about just going in to buy something and come back out anymore. So that thing about a quality place to dwell and connecting people to it and stretching that economy is at the heart of part of that paradigm shift that's taking place in society as well. There's a big bit about you build any good plan builds on your natural strengths. And at Shropshire, we have done extremely well in terms of positioning ourselves in that whole green economy. We believe we're something like the 5th biggest generator of renewable energy in the UK. In the West Midlands, the biggest. So incredible amount of kind of activity there, whether it's in biomass or solar. Government have taken the shackles off wind. Let's see what happens there. But anyway, so there's a thing though about green jobs, the green economy, that's kind of where it's at. There's another bit about how that links to added value industry, how that links to supply chains that make you competitive. So, behind the story, it's about the economy that supports it, which is crucial, and the clusters that we've got. And we've got some wonderful kind of natural clusters here, haven't we? For whatever reason, we've got this natural cluster of hydrology specialists. In the world of climate change, even more important to many parts of the world that didn't kind of have water stress. You haven't coughed yet, Carl, so I'm all right at the moment, aren't I? But then there's this changing world, and God, is it changing fast, isn't it? I was talking to Paul McGilvray, book coming out soon, about the need of kind of keep up with this kind of revolution on top of revolution at the moment that's taking place in the world of AI and technology. So I'll let Paul tell you about his book later. But the interesting bit is there are these mega trends, and you've got to stay abreast of all of those mega trends. For Shropshire, demographics is a big one. by 2030, something like 33% of our population will be over 65 in Shropshire. Some parts of the county, geographically, will be over 40%. 65. We've got a range of kind of interesting questions ahead of us. We've been mapping out what Shropshire 2050 looks like. We'll have a population close to 400,000 from 325,000 today. The profile of that workforce, the nature of that kind of population, it all features in the kind of plans that we're bringing forward. So, looking forward, there's an interesting bit here, if you can look at that housing graph that goes right back to the 90s. What you'll see is 2021 was almost a record year for housing sales in Shrewsbury. Now, considering that we were in lockdown still for a big part of 2021, what an amazing statistic that is. But that shows that shift that people made in terms of lifestyle choices. And then it dropped back in 2022, and as you can see, and then the cost of living kind of impact hit, and that kind of slowed things up. But it looks like we're going to settle again this year somewhere around that kind of 10-year average. So really interesting. About 40% of kind of new housing development in the county has been taking place in Shrewsbury. So that's a really good, interesting thing. And if you're interested when you get the slides, because they'll be circulated, I'm sure, look at what's happened in terms of average values in that too, because it's kind of shifting. A big part of our story is connectivity. We talk in the Marches Forward context about being the green lung between the conurbations of Birmingham, Manchester and kind of South Wales. Unpack that story later. But that connectivity piece is crucial, and it's about digital connectivity as well. Broadly, about 96-97% of all properties are now connected to superfast broadband. We are part of a 5G pilot rollout as well for large parts of the county. So great to see that technology come forward too. I'm racing through. We're going through the process of re-examining our economic strategy and the targets that we've got. It looks like we're on track to deliver those for 2027. So that's great news. Actually, there's nothing quite like saying, we said this, we've done that. It gives confidence to people who are investing. It gives confidence to people who are looking at your future plans. So that thing about jobs growth, investment, wages, productivity, they will feature in kind of our plans going forward. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. I was talking to a developer forum a couple of weeks ago about investment opportunities in Shropshire, and we kind of put a piece of work together just to take to that session. And we mapped out over 30 sites, I think it's about 35 sites in Shropshire that are currently being promoted for development, and some of them are being kind of brought forward. And it was over 800 hectares of development with a gross development value of over £5 billion. That's phenomenal, really, when you think about that development coming forward and what that means in the supply chain and how it affects our economy. And for every £1 you put in construction, it creates a £7 impact in an induced and an indirect impact on your economy. So lots of kind of really positive things to look at there. And Matt Potts and his team are in the room to talk to if you want to know about any of those sites. Don't want to dwell too much on this, but just to give you confidence, the matrix of things that we're looking at in strategies going forward are manufacturing and industry. Actually, it was great to see some of the stats coming from colleges and FE about the interest in engineering training at the moment. Thank you for that, Corinne. But the interest in engineering of all types we're actually in a really good position. So that supply chain of talent is one of the key things that everybody in business needs to know exists. So we're looking to get behind added value, high-tech industry, agriculture and agri-tech, really kind of trying to get behind that revolution that's going on within the farming community and agriculture, and I'm good to see Ed here as well. That thing about automation on farms is a massive potential kind of growth issue for us. And then how does that feed through into the location of food manufacturing, and then obviously into the added value parts of food as well. So we're getting behind all of that. It's one of our natural strengths. Tourism, I don't need to talk about that. The visitor economy is a massive part of our economy. Probably something like 1 in 5 jobs in some ways are impacted on the visitor economy. So that kind of bringing forward all of that kind of infrastructure that supports those that are in it is crucial, whether that's in market towns or in rural locations. Digital and tech, I've kind of talked about quite a bit. We've got an inquiry at the moment for a digital tech organisation that want about 7,500 foot to bring that organisation over to Shrewsbury. You know, that kind of interest is growing all the time. We've got already, you know, big digital interested organisations that are here that want to grow. So we're beginning to become a place that people want to locate those businesses, which is fantastic. We do have our challenges in the sense of a range of kind of things about labour market shortages. Median wage is still about 5 to 10% below the national average. You know, that kind of need to kind of really up the value of the local economy is a big part of what our strategy is all about. So a big mix there, a little palette that I thought I'd share with you that you can kind of dwell on, that you know that we'll be focusing forward, that then inform our 3 key themes about the supply chain of talent, employment and skills. It's absolutely central. I talk about the ecosystem that supports all of you. There is no single silver bullet. There's lots of different things, whether it's access to finance, whether it's development opportunities, whether it's networking, whether it's advice that the growth hubs give. There are so many angles that we're looking to build, you know, that infrastructure, and just kind of enrich that to create more conditions that are favourable for everybody. And then there's a bit about, you know, all boats on a rising tide, picking those key locations where growth will take place. So that's at the heart of it all. You didn't cough, Carl. I managed it in 15 minutes, did I? Thank you very much.